Thanks, Mandy. So I thought you're just going to call me to say something that's a bit weird. So I'm Stephan, and I was asked to do just these two things. So the consultation started in '96. Sorry. The first time, and it was really in those years just after the democratic transition, the way in which cities open up, cities changed quite a bit, and there was a sense that the church did not really know how to grapple with it. There was actually, I think, only one module taught on urban ministry by a guy in Pietermaritzburg, Harold Leroux. Nobody else taught urban ministry or thought about urban theology, and so we tried to create spaces where that conversation could take place. So on the one hand, so what started then was something called the Institute for Urban Ministry, and over the years it did two things. It created some programs and workbooks and so forth. And there are some people now in all kinds of interesting spaces in South Africa who came through that process. But we also thought there needs to be a space where urban workers can gather. And so the first consultation happened in 1996. And it was such an important space that since then it happened every second year. And even during COVID 2 years ago, it happened. I think that was probably the most participation because it was online. And so, for example, in Durban, there was a group of people sitting together at the Dennis Hurley Center participating, and in Nairobi and across the continent and in the US and in different places. So that was an exciting space. It's good to be back together in person. I must say, personally, I'm disappointed at the number of people. I would have thought, because of where we're at in South Africa, and maybe we disagree about where we're at, but I think we're in a crisis. And I would have thought we will be lots of people reaching out to each other and saying we have to be here and talk to each other. So my hope is that if we find this helpful, maybe we decide we never want to do it again after this. If we find it helpful, I hope you'll bring 5 and 10 other people next time so that this could become a real movement for urban change. So that's a little bit about the history of the consultation. But let me just switch gears quickly. We've never been alone. We've always been surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, those going before us in urban work, those being present with us in consultations like this, those praying for us and cheering us on from afar. In Hebrews 12 it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." And so as we start this consultation, I ask you to join me as we remember. And there are 4 candles here. I'm going to just pick on 4 people to light it for us. Tonight, in a special way, the first candle, and can I ask, where's Mimanasha? Could you please, Mimanasha, I'll say also who you are, if you will be willing to light the first candle. Because we want to remember and honor our sister from the Horn of Africa, Jember Tefera. Some of you have come with the consultation and leadership foundations would have met Jember at many of our consultations. So if you could just light one for us. And we're so pleased that Mimanasha, that you're with us. Mimanasha is the daughter of Jember. And it's great that she's with us and that she's also going to be part, we trust, of this journey going forward. Thank you so much. So Jember was a partner, a sister, a friend. So let me just say something briefly about her. Coming from a prestigious family, she was the 3rd cousin to the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. After the emergence of a repressive regime succeeding his reign, her husband, who was the mayor of Addis Ababa, Jember's husband, was imprisoned for 8 years, and Jember herself was jailed for 5 years. Before that, she got a master's degree in public health from the UK. And whilst in prison, instead of plotting vengeance, she started health programs for both the prison guards and the inmates. She helped start a school for both convicts and prison guards. Upon her release in 1981, instead of escaping the harshness of her context and seeing where she came from, she could go anywhere in the world, she pledged to go deeper into the struggle against poverty and injustice. She started what was called the Integrated Holistic Approach Urban Development Project, improving housing, health, education, and employment for more than 50,000 people in Addis Ababa. She also, in that time, obtained a Doctor of Ministry in Urban Ministry under Ray Bucky. This later became the Birian Social Development Training and Consultation Center that is today run by Menashe. And Menashe did her own master's and doctoral work, always based on the work of her mother. And she told us yesterday, never thinking she would one day take over the leadership responsibility for Birian. So we're so glad, Menashe, that you are with us. But apart from what I just said, what I will most remember about Jember is a friendship. We've become close since we first met, which was in the middle 90s. Often we were the only Africans in meetings, and Menashe reminded me that Jember called me her little brother, which I was quite proud of. She became an amazing and faithful friend to me, to Volna, to many in our movement. She was part of Leadership Foundations Africa and hosted some of us who are here in her home in Addis. And we spent time together in different cities in the world learning together. Although her work was amazing, she was not a woman of lofty words, but of humble, persistent, stubborn action. She did not engage in sophisticated theories. It was so simple that it was almost like, really? Her faith in God and a deep respect for the poorest of the poor, always insisting that whatever we do should be bottom up. So in these 50,000 people that were served, the agenda was always determined by those people. And Jember and her team came alongside that. She also knew pain, losing a son to suicide on the same day her husband died in 96. And a few years ago, her second son had a stroke, and Jember looked after him until her own passing. She left her son, Vorkne, and daughters Memanasha and Lelo, and sadly passed away February 2021 at the age of 77. So we will never forget you, small woman with a small voice, but a large woman with a great heart. The other three candles will be a bit shorter. Has anybody in this room known Ray Bucky, have met Ray Bucky personally? Trevor? Do you want to please light the second candle? Ray was the first speaker at our first urban consultation in 1996. In fact, he spoke all the time. Nobody else spoke. He also introduced Jember and me to each other, and we became part of his network called International Urban Associates. His best-known books were The Urban Christian and A Theology as Big as the City. And he invited many of us into his network. Oh, thanks, yeah. Later on, the Bucky Graduate University was started in Seattle with the Doctor of Ministry program in Transformational Urban Leaders. Today, there is a Ray Bucky Center for Transformational Urban Leadership in Hong Kong. And so across the world, the fingerprints of Ray have left deep marks on people and on cities. We remember Ray. He passed away earlier this year with a very advanced form of dementia. I spoke to him about a month before that, and he was still very bright, but he passed away. But we have to remember him, because many of us have lived our lives on the shoulders of people like Jember and Ray. Ruben, I know you're going to speak, but I want to ask you to, for a reason, to please light the third candle. The third candle is for a young, committed activist of the people. And I know Ruben has been very involved with the Abashlali group in Durban especially. So this week, on Saturday, Lindokuzle Mguni was the chairperson of the Ekanana commune of Abashlali in Durban. I told some of you that I've visited Ekanana about a year ago, and it felt like a little piece of the kingdom of God. He was described as a fearless leader with a sharp mind to school people in Fanon and Frere and Biko, and they started the Frans Fanon Political School in Ekanana, modeling a communal form of living that when I saw and felt it, it felt like something of God's kingdom. But he was the 24th activist of Abashlali killed by political opponents and the 4th member of the Ekanana community. His crime was a vision of an inclusive city, a communal economics, and a politics of the people. The perpetrators of the assassinations are in almost all cases leading members of the ruling party in that province. And the church largely, with the exception of a few people like Bishop Philip, the church is quiet. So when we worship loudly, my desire is that that worship loudly and noisily will also translate into movements that will be as noisy about the injustices around us. Otherwise, God might not be so interested in our worship. The last candle, and who can we pick upon? Who wants to light? Tsepo, do you want to light the last candle, please? Tsepo Mtuba. The last candle is for everyday change makers. Those people Mandisa talked about, and I suppose for all of us. In cities across this country, the continent, the planet, those people that do what they believe is right, and often without reward. May God's light shine into the dark places of our hearts and streets and neighborhoods to make new and to set free. I hope that we will enjoy our time together. Thanks, Manis.